So if you have an apparent democracy where only one half of the conflict is represented, then you have a problem. In the end, the democracy collapses, and no one represents the interests of the working class. So that's why we need a party of the left. I mean, left unity, I think, is a very honest attempt to form a party of the left that is democratic. It's not, as the old socialists said, used to be democratic centralist, which was very centralised but not terribly democratic, usually. It's an attempt to broaden its approach so that you don't have to pass an exam in Marxism before you can attend.
We're fighting for social and environmental justice, and this means that we want to make sure that we have no tuition fees, so that basically we can invest in the next generation, making sure that we have an NHS that's in public hands, renationalise our railways, and also make sure that we tackle climate change so we don't go above 2 degrees of warming. In short, we really stand for the common good and fighting for people and the environment.
The whole idea of austerity is a fraud. The people in whose interest it is have no problem. They're not suffering austerity, and neither their political representatives. We just need a different economic system where we use our labour power to make the things we need, to protect the environment, to pay everybody a good wage that they can live on. Well, we don't invest in illegal wars, we don't invest in nuclear weapons that will never be used, and we don't pay the people at the top absurd benefits and allow them to escape taxation.
What we want is investment. That's investment in the frontline services that people feel proud of, making sure that the NHS is in public hands and has the investment it needs, making sure that our railways, our schools, our public services have the investment they need and therefore create jobs, giving people more opportunities.
No one represents the interests of labour and starts from the interests of the working class, which is, what are they? They're security of employment, a secure social wage in terms of health, of education, of provision when you're sick, decent housing, security of pension, everything that makes for a secure life, a dignified life where you can contribute to society, you can be properly paid for your work so you can sustain a life for you and your family. No one is representing those interests.
I think, I don't know if you've seen our election broadcasts, but we make it quite clear that we feel that the other parties are in harmony with each other, that there isn't much difference between them. And what we really are looking at with the Green Party is we're an anti-austerity party, that we're really making sure that we're not benefiting big business or multinational corporations and looking out for people. And I think that that's something that the other parties just aren't doing, and it's the same politics of the past and not politics for the 21st century.
Well, the immigration is a red herring. I mean, it comes again from a number of causes. I mean, there was mass unemployment in the 1930s. There were no East Europeans or Pakistanis or Asians or people from the West Indies here then. And yet we had over 3 million unemployed. Now, the problem lies with the economic system that goes through cycles, it goes through booms and depressions, and we've had a depression. The banks, I mean, a fundamental element of the economic system working is to have banks. Well, if capitalists can't run banks without driving us into chaos, the system plainly isn't working.
The Green Party are very clear on our position with Trident. It's a relic of the Cold War. Even Michael Portillo said it's past its sell-by date when he's a former Defence Secretary. And what we're seeing is £100 billion being invested into something that doesn't keep our shores safe, that is a relic of the Cold War. And we need investment into the NHS, into schools, into public services. And that's just what I'm hearing from people on the ground. They don't want to see this money disappearing onto weapons that we would never use, and want to see it invested into these services.
Again, the widening gap between rich and poor, we have to again recognise where it comes from. It comes from, it comes from the economic system where those who gain their income not from a wage or from a salary for work, but from investments, and and ownership of companies and businesses and shareholders and so on. That as their businesses increase, so their wealth increases, and because they're in competition, they have to drive down the cost of labour so that the services, whatever they provide, gets cheaper. So at the one end, you've got a competition in cutting the cost of labour. That means making working class more vulnerable, cheaper, poorer, and at the top, the profits are shared amongst an increasingly fewer group of people. So the system itself drives inequality. It isn't the system failing, it's the system working as it will do.
We have reached a point where this is a crisis, and I think it's a moral that we've got this far. When you look at the statistics, 50% of new people registered homeless are under the age of 24 as a result of sanctions, as a result of slow benefit claiming. And I think this is in the sixth wealthiest nation in the world. This is just it's completely astonishing. And we need to be building more houses, investing in homes. And the Green Party have a commitment to building 500,000 socially owned housing so that we can make sure that we're investing in people and not just seeing housing as something for profit.
But to deal with housing, you've got to deal with the ownership of land, you've got to deal with the building industry, which traditionally for council housing meant direct labour, so that councils would employ builders and architects and employ people directly. So you would need to do that. So that's land, so that's the direct employment of building labour and architects and planners. And it means a structured community. And in the end, because we have so many empty houses. We've got empty houses where there's no work, and we've got homeless people where there's odd jobs. People can get work even however poorly paid they are. Homelessness, again, is a function of that chaos.
Looking at markets isn't good enough. That we need to be making sure that we're fighting for things like a living wage, making sure that people can make ends meet, that we need to be making sure that we have homes for people and not have this rental market that has created the housing bubble, that has created the housing crisis we're currently living in. But then also making sure that we tackle environmental issues, the very foundations that that support the world as a whole.
Increasing the power of the multinationals so that they are free to exploit anywhere in the world for their own profit under conditions that they set down, and they can sue states that they claim are violating their rights to make profit. If the states are representing the interests of their people, tough. And it is for a system of courts that are outside national jurisdiction, so that this is far more than Europe. It is giving up sovereignty, because if you can't make your law supreme and apply to everyone to come to your courts, then of course you lose power. And the multinational corporations are already more powerful than most states. This will increase their power over democratically elected governments. Interestingly, again, where is the Labour Party in opposing this? Where are they? Cowering under the table somewhere? No, this is to be resisted at all costs. It's a disaster, not only for working people. It's a disaster for the planet, because God knows what their unhindered exploitation of the world's resources will lead to.
I mean, Considering David Cameron has called the environment this green crap, then it's not really been very progressive. That we've missed an opportunity to really see investment into renewables, to see investment into, if you look at London, into hybrid vehicles, and we need to be, and that's been happening across the UK, and we need to be making sure those investments are happening now. The more we delay it, the closer we get to, well, today actually across the southeast, we've got a health warning on air pollution as a result of the toxicity in the atmosphere, and we need to be making sure that we address this now, because the longer we leave it, the bigger the issue is going to become.
Films have a very limited effect. In the end, it's just a film. You go in the cinema and you watch it, or you watch it on, on a television, or a screen somewhere on your computer, however you watch it. It's just a film. I mean, it can ask questions. It can leave you, it can provoke you into anger or dismay or activism. But in the end, what matters is what you do when you've seen the film, really.
So I'm standing in Camberwell and Peckham against Harriet Harman, and the reason I wanted to stand there was because the reason I ran for deputy leader was to prove what young people can do in politics. I've been disappointed at the fact that the Labour Party, I feel, has let down a generation when you look at benefits and when you look at tuition fees, that actually we're not supporting a generation. It's mimicking this intergenerational inequality that we've seen from the coalition government. I want to make sure that we're challenging this against the Labour Party, and I feel that standing against Harriet Harman is the best way to do this.
Now, the Greens have some good policies, and they have some very progressive ideas, particularly on the environment, but on other issues as well, like the taking the railways back into public ownership, raising the minimum wage, and so on. But in the end, they're not. Their political base, is about managing and restraining capital, and I think the alternative view that bases itself on the organised working class is not being heard, and that's why we need a party of the left.
At the Green Party, it's really important. We're standing in more seats than ever in this general election. We're going to be standing in over 90% of seats. But what we've been seeing from politics around Europe is that we can't achieve what we want to achieve without working in partnership with other organisations. We're a grassroots organisation, so our policies are created from evidence put forward by our members, discussed and debated and voted on by our members. And at the last conference, we put through a motion that does support working in coalition, not working in coalition, but working jointly with candidates from other parties.
To make it work, people need to join. I mean, there are so many campaigns, aren't there? On all the social issues. All those campaigns came together. On the health centre, they all came together. You'd have a movement and a party that was unstoppable. We'd have our own Syriza or our own Podemos. But people stay fragmented, isolated, in single issues, anxious, don't want to prevent Labour getting in, despite all the evidence of what they will do when in power. If all those people came together, we'd be unstoppable. And a left unity was formed to facilitate that. Whether it can achieve it, I don't know. I mean, in the end, it depends on the imagination and organising capacity of those involved. It needs to, but you have to join to make it.